To another.
Okay.
Thank you, Chris.
And we're going to have David's going to vote tonight, correct?
Yes. Yep,
Okay.
you'll be a voting member.
Okay, perfect. All right. All right. And are we all set to go, Lisa?
Let me start the recording and we will dive in. Good to go. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Let's call to order the April 22nd, 2021 meeting of the East Greenwich Zoning Board Review. My name is Christopher Mulhern, and I am the Vice Chairman sitting in for Richard Land, Chairman this evening. Also with us is Jody Skeery, a member of the Zoning Board, Barry Golden, member of the Zoning Board, Melody Alger, member of the Zoning Board, and David Cooling, member of the Zoning Board. We have two agenda items on this evening, both of which have been duly noticed. And with the board's kind permission, we'll turn our attention to agenda item number 1, which is Jason D. Inicelli, MD, and Shauna H. Inicelli for property located at 5 Cole Circle, map 62, assessors plot 10, lot 390. Zoned residential R30. The applicant seeks a dimensional variance from Table 2 of Chapter 260 of the Town Code Zoning Ordinance Dimensional Regulations by zone and Section F of the same chapter pertaining to the siting of accessory structures. Specifically, the petition seeks to retain and install 14 by 20 shed within the west side setback where accessory structures shall only be permitted in rear yards in the building envelope. Are Dr. Inicelli and Mrs. Inicelli here?
We are.
Perfect. If you could, I'll have the court stenographer swear each of you in, and then we can proceed.
Would you both raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear the testimony we're about to give in the matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Please just state your full names for the record.
Jason D. Inicelli.
Shauna Hassett Inicelli.
Thank you.
Good evening to you both. You've heard me identify the applications that's before the zoning board. If you could please indicate what it is that you guys are looking to do and describe for the board a bit what you'd like to achieve.
Sure. We are currently in R30 zone property. We have a utility shed mainly for storage of children's bikes and assorted toys, garden tools. It needs to sort of be in close proximity to the driveway for that reason. Some of the stuff that gets stored in there is fairly cumbersome to move. So a nice hard surface to roll it on is a must. But we are actually requesting a dimensional variance on the lateral setback requirement for our property between 5 Cole Circle and that's 7 or 6 of it? 6 Cole Circle. The shed, actually, we had a plot of land cleared. The shed is actually already constructed on site, and the company has placed it approximately 11 feet closer to the neighbor's property than what was intended. So we are looking for a dimensional variance from the 30 feet that is required to 19 feet from the perimeter of the neighbor's property. The neighbors are aware. They were notified, and they've given their consent to us verbally. The shed itself is, there are photos that are in the paperwork that we submitted. It does match the exterior of the house, so it's not a visible, eyesore in any way. We do intend to, if all this gets approved, we intend to landscape it nicely this spring. And we'll put up some additional bushes just to kind of provide a little buffer between our yard and the neighbors. But the main issue was that we couldn't really find a suitable location for the shed with access to the driveway other than the spot that it's in. If we went closer off the back of the driveway, we would have violated a 50-foot setback that was in place as an ordinance, since the time the development was opened, apparently. So again, the point of the application was to seek the dimensional variance for the lateral setback. The shed is only 19 feet from the property line, and it should be 30. And that was that's our request.
And so if I understand correctly, you're looking for 11 feet, 3 inches of relief, correct?
Correct.
Do any members of the board have questions for Dr. and Mrs. Anicelli? Just for the board's edification, as I'm sure everybody saw in the staff recommendation, there have been 3 letters of support that have been submitted from neighbors in support of the requested relief.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We got a couple more of those over the last couple of days. We did get one from Luke and Lindsay Beffa at 6 Cole Circle, who I think would be the direct abutter, and an additional one from 139 Kent Drive, who I believe is an abutter to the rear.
Correct.
Perfect. Hearing no questions or inquiries from the board, Lisa, is there anybody in the general public who wants to speak in favor of the application?
So we do have several people on the line. I think a lot of them are associated with the next application, but please, at the bottom of your screen, press the raise your hand button if you'd like to speak. If you're a call-in by phone, you need to press *9 to virtually raise your hand. And then we'll get you unmuted if you'll let us know you wish to speak. I'm not seeing any hands go up, but let's give it another second and make sure there aren't any tech issues. So again, if you're a call-in listener and you want to speak and you're on a phone rather than a computer, *9 will get your virtual hand raised, and then you'll have to hit *6 to unmute yourself. Or just, if you're on the computer, click the raise hand button at the bottom of the screen and we'll recognize you to speak. Still not seeing anything, so.
Okay. Insofar as there are no members of the public speaking in favor of the application, are there any members of the public who oppose the application and would like to be heard? Okay, hearing none, or seeing none, I should say. Is there a motion from any members of the board with regard to the request for relief in the pending application?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the application as submitted.
I'll
Okay, Mr.
second it.
Scarry makes the motion, Mr. Golden seconds. For purposes of the board, the relevant standards with regard to the requested dimensional variance, the following criteria must be met. The hardship from which the applicant seeks relief is due to the unique characteristics of the subject land and not the general characteristics of the surrounding area. The hardship is not the result of any prior action by the applicant and does not result primarily from the desire for greater financial gain. Granting the request will not alter the general character or the surrounding area or impair the purpose or intent of the zoning ordinance or comprehensive plan. The relief granted is the least relief necessary, and the hardship suffered by the owner, if the variance is not granted, shall amount to more than a mere inconvenience. With those standards in mind, is there any discussion amongst the board with regard to the motion that Ms. Scarry has made? Okay, that makes it easy. Insofar as there is no discussion, why don't we do a roll call vote with regard to the pending motion?
So when I say your name, please indicate your support for the motion. Mr. Collier,
Aye, vote to approve.
thank you. Ms. Alger,
Move to approve.
Mr. Mulhern,
Approve?
Mr. Golden,
Approved.
and Ms. Siri.
Approve.
5-0, Dr. Anicelli, Mrs. Anicelli, good luck to you both.
Thank you all very much. Have a good night.
Thank
too.
you. Okay. Think we're ready for number 2.
Is the applicant on the line, Lisa?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm gonna bring in the attorney and the engineer. And if there are others they want us to promote, they will let us know. I think I clicked the wrong button and kicked out a board member, so the screen shifts, so give me a second. There we go.
Perfect.
I do have a hand raised. I hope it wasn't someone. Is it Eric Zwania? Is he wanting to be promoted as well?
Yes, Lisa, please. That's a
Thank you.
project architect.
Lisa, and Mike Colapietro is the owner.
Got it. There he is.
Thank you.
We're getting there. Okay. Everybody's screen should be sufficiently full now.
Okay, with that in mind, let's turn our attention, if we could, to the second and final agenda item for the evening. That's the application of 11 Main Street LLC for property located at 11 Main Street, East Greenwich. That's map 85, Assessors Plat 1, Lot 242, zoned commercial downtown CD1. The applicant seeks dimensional variances from Chapter 260 of the Town Code, Zoning Ordinance Table 2, dimensional regulations by zone, specifically from the maximum lot coverage pavement. Additionally, a relief is required from Article 6 Off-Street Parking Regulations, Section 260-20, required off-street parking spaces. Section 260-23A1, minimum aisle width. Section 260-25B1, amount of landscaping. Section 260-25D1 and 2, required setbacks buffers. Finally, relief is needed from Article 7, signs, Section 260-27A, definition of a monument sign. The applicant seeks to convert the former restaurant use to office space to house the world headquarters for SmartTap.com. The change of use necessitates relief since there is a lack of on-site parking and dimensional nonconformities already existing with regard to the lot. Mr. Goodyear, I assume that you're representing the applicant. You'll be presenting this evening.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Please proceed.
Good evening, board members. My name is Nicholas Goodyear. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. I'm excited to introduce this proposal to this board. As many of you are aware, the intersection of Main Street and Division Street is where 11 Main Street's located. Former situation for the Post Office Cafe, which has not been utilized as a restaurant for several years. The program that's before you today suggests the conversion of that to an office space for SmartApp. SmartApp is a local company. We have two of the gentlemen that are involved with the company here. It's in the business of software for construction companies. They're very excited to update and retrofit this building, which is about 100 years old and has certainly some historic significance for the purpose of having it as a showcase location. In terms of zoning, it is zoned commercial downtown. Office space is permitted. So the request for relief centers all on dimensional relief. And the number of requests may seem like numerous in nature. However, they're presented due to the existing development and how that property has been built out over the years. large part, the applicant is moving away from the nonconformities and rendering the site more conforming with this proposal. And that was highlighted in the staff report. Again, we have all the applicant's representatives available, the project architect, and we have the engineers involved, and also project representatives available to answer any questions about the particular business. The presentation will highlight exactly what areas of the code we're seeking relief from and detail the reasons why. So I think without any further procedural questions from a legal standpoint, we can have the project engineer go through, again, a very well-prepared presentation. I will add for one point that this proposal was presented to the Historic District Commission, and there was no objection based on that concept being presented there. So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to introduce Joe Casale. I think he'll take the lead in doing a presentation in conjunction with Bill Lavery, both the project engineers.
Thank you, Mr. Goodyear, and I'm familiar with both Mr. Casale, Mr. Lavery. If you gentlemen would, I know the court reporter will need to swear you in before you testify this evening.
Mr. Casale, unmute yourself. You're muted.
Thank you.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you so much. Mr. Lavery?
William Lavery with Joe Casale Engineering.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, good evening, first of all, and thank you, members of the board. Just for the record, my name is Joe Casale. I'm a registered professional engineer with offices at 300 Post Road in Warwick. I'd like to just go through a quick presentation and go over the variances that we're seeking before you tonight. Mr. Chairman, if it makes sense, I'm going to start, and then I'd like Eric Zwayner, our architect, to go through the programmatic floor plan. Would you like to swear him in now?
That would be fine, yes.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Lisa, may I? Got it. I assume you all can see my screen. So again, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just in terms of location where we are, you know, such an important property to the community, Division Street, which is obviously the division of both East Greenwich and Warwick, Post Road on one side, Main Street on the other, and that's the subject parcel, specifically 85-1, lot 242. It's a small piece. It's under 18,000 square feet, and it's entirely in your commercial district 1 zone. When we look closer at the parcel, because of the zone that it's in, it is a corner lot. It does not have a front yard setback, so it has multiple rears. As you can see in the orange, the entire building, which is existing and is, I know the aerial covers it, but it's the building's about 4,600 in terms of square feet of its footprint, and within the building envelope. In terms of the programmatic floor plan, Eric, if you may, run the board through what you're thinking from an architectural standpoint. I've got both of your floor plans and also the elevation, and I'll click on your cue.
Yeah, Joe, thank you very much. And Mr. Mulhern, thank you, acting chairman this evening, and members of the board. Really appreciate the time, and we're super excited about the project, as all stakeholders of this project are. Just want to echo a few points. The first one is, you know, obviously this is a transformational project for everyone involved, and certainly a gateway project adjacent to the Varnum Memorial Armory. These two structures act as the gateway into town, and so we're treating it as such, and we're super excited about the way that the client has asked us to approach the building. It's always nice on an adaptive reuse project to be adaptively reusing something as it was originally intended. It was originally intended as an office, and here we are finally bringing it back to its original use about 90 years later, which is super exciting for us. We are doing a few things to make it a little bit more usable in today's day, and so we're paying close attention to the way our interior fit out is juxtaposed against this architectural historic shell. But with regard to the historic shell, as mentioned earlier as well, the HTC is very excited about what we're doing to the exterior envelope and how we're treating it with super amount of sensitivity and making sure that we're not doing anything to compromise its historic contributing qualities. The one appendage or architectural moment that we're adding to this structure is its rooftop, and I think that that's something worth pointing out here. Doesn't create any sort of dimensional variance requirement. We're still living within the 35-foot height of limit in the zone, but that is additional workspace that we are adding to make this a new headquarters for the Smart App team. The Smart App team are very much forward thinkers. They're very smart about how they want their team to use this space. They're using it as a showcase, an international showcase of what they do and how they do it. And so the synergy between the town and these guys being international software developers, I think is great. And again, the way we're juxtaposing this historic shell to the interior fit out, we think is really fun. The other key area that is something worth mentioning to this board is the build out of the front facade of the front area to make it also an exterior space that's more usable. Increasing the size of that patio space is something we think is important to make the space more usable and more livable for a group of technology specific developers. The floor plan, if Joe can just click over to the first floor plan, what it shows is a very grand arrival experience. As you march up this grand staircase, just as it was originally intended, you walk into this grand reception area, this grand stair, a very great public interface for guests, where the rear of the building is more of where the horsepower actually lives and works. We're activating the lower level for production space, and we're adding a mezzanine, which you'll see on the next slide, I believe, Joe. Yep, adding a mezzanine. So bifurcating the existing volume inside this building to create more office space. You'll also notice that we're being super sensitive. On the left-hand side, you'll notice that the floor plate that we're adding, we're being ultra sensitive to the existing glazing at the perimeter to make sure that our floor system does not interrupt the glazing system that's happening in the exterior of the building, the historic glazing system. We are replacing the glazing system, but with an historic similar product, and that will obviously be approved by HDC as well. But we know enough to step back off these historic windows to make sure that we're not interrupting that glazing feature. A look down area, a small conference room in the bottom right hand of the plan, and then on the right hand side, the plan on the right is showing you that new rooftop venue. Very modest space, but really an opportunity to open up the doors, create this indoor-outdoor experience. With some, a lush landscaped, probably sedum blanket floor that would hide some of the rooftop rubber membrane and ballast that I think are up there, but to make it a little bit more of a highlight of this office space. On the exterior, we are doing a little bit to add some new articulation with some new canopies. New signage, which I think Joe and his team are going to talk a little bit more about. I'll probably contribute at that juncture as well. And planters, new landscape, and obviously, as Joe's team mentioned earlier too, a lot of the variances we're looking for are existing non-conforming conditions. But again, we're trying to breathe life back into this business, to this building, and to a site that we know is incredibly valuable and special for the town of East Greenwich. So Joe, I'll continue to jump in, but that is sort of a quick just download of what we intend to do here, architecturally speaking.
Thank you, Eric. So in terms of the specific variances and site amenities, Mr. Chairman, as Eric talked about, you see the proposed patio We're also going to be proposing a gate so that, to restrict public access. We will be proposing gates also at each of the driveways. This may be new, was not in your packet. We've been working continuously to update the design. Also, there'll be a loading area with a garage door to the rear appendage of the building, a dumpster enclosure area, and also an ADA accessible ramp. We're also proposing to have one of the spaces be an electrical vehicle space, and also have both motorcycle and bicycle spaces, as we expect our application developers to have many means of egress and access to the site and to get to work. Lastly, landscaping as talked about in front, and also the existing wooden fence. I know that that's in disrepair. We've committed to remove and replace that. So getting into this long list of relief, it all really hinges around the parking. We've tried to create as much parking as we could to get to the required. We know we'll never get there, but all of the other dimensional variances are pre-existing, non-conforming, and as you'll see, or hopefully see, they relate to the parking. So in terms of specifics, an office size of this space per your code, 1 per 200, we would need 56 total spaces. Today, there's about 10. We've been able to provide 15, but we're still respectfully requesting 41 spaces of relief. So those are the 15 spaces, as you can see, as we've outlined. In terms of one of the pre-existing non-conforming conditions is the aisle width within the parking lot. Code requires 25. We exist at 20.1. We're keeping it that way. It's still need to request at 4.9 feet. And that's just that we have a building appendage and we just can't meet that aisle width. Also, in terms of landscaping within parking lots greater than 10 spaces, requirement that 10% of the area is landscaped. Currently, none is landscaped. Respectfully, we're not proposing to landscape any because we would lose spaces. So we're asking again for the full relief of 10%. Number 4 would be parking in the front lot setback or front yard setback. It's required to be 5 feet. Currently, the pre-existing non-conforming condition, I should say, is 0. Excuse me. We've made this one a little bit better. We were able to come off a couple of feet, but we're still asking you for 3 feet of dimensional relief. And that's bringing that parking as far off the property line as we can, off the front yard setback. Also in the side and rear yard setbacks, 10 feet's required. What exists is 0. Again, we're not proposing to change that to lose any spaces. We're requesting 10 feet of relief. That speaks to these spaces that were in that side yard setback. Also, one of the elements that we are increasing, albeit slightly, is lot coverage. Required is 80%. What exists there today is slightly less than 82. We're proposing around 86 or 85.8. And out of an abundance of caution, we're asking, and I say that because the impervious areas that we're creating are related to the patio. We will commit to creating, a patio with open joints, sand underneath it, and it'll be more of a porous type situation. But regardless, we wanted to just ask for the 5.8% of relief. And Mr. Chairman, I promise the last one, that's number 6. The last one would be the sign. It's required to be 10 feet back from the lot lines. Right now, it's just under 4. We're proposing to put it about 1.5 feet. and asking for 8.5 feet of relief, and that's the sign. So again, there are 7 of them. Really 6 are compartmentalized into the parking, and then of course there's the sign. But with that, I will rest. I don't know, Eric, if there's anything else you have. Nick, I'll flip it back to you. Unless Mr. Chairman, if you or members of the board have any questions, be happy to answer.
Mr. Casali, thank you and Mr. Zwainer for the comprehensive and very helpful presentation. At this point, before Mr. Goodyear jumps back in, because you've thrown a lot of information at the board, I'd ask whether any members of the board have questions specific to Mr. Casali or Mr. Zwainer's presentation.
Mr. Vice Chairman, I do have a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Golden.
I'm not sure I'm going to go in the right direction here, but currently the parking as you look at the picture to the left, with the building as it states, it's not gated off. And do we know whether that's being used during the Friday night and Saturday night lack of parking for restaurants in the area?
I'm not sure. I'll defer, I guess, to the community on that. I would assume, it would be used, knowing the area, if it's not gated off.
If I could, Mr. Golden, and maybe Mr. Goodyear could shed some light on it, but it would seem to me that unless the property owners would have leased the parking lot during non-business hours or the evening hours to a business that operates on Main Street, it would seem to me that to the extent that anybody is using it, they're probably using it without authorization. But I leave that to Mr. Goodyear to answer in conjunction with the property owners.
Yeah, you're correct, Mr. Chair. I'm not aware of any ability contractually for that property to be utilized for that purpose on certain nights or any nights. But I know the applicants are here. If they have any knowledge to that, I would let them speak as well.
Yes, hi, this is Michael Colapetro, one of the co-
Sir, would you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Just state again your full name.
Michael R. Colapetro.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, today it's not used in any capacity for any night activities. We're not renting or have any arrangements to do so and don't plan to do so. It is currently chained off, but obviously as we go through these extensive renovations, we would expect to put much more aesthetically pleasing gating mechanisms at those key entrance points.
Thank you, Mr. Colapetro. Mr. Golden, do you have any further questions for the applicant's representatives?
No.
Do any other members of the board have any questions?
I do have a quick question. Yeah. We're constantly granting parking relief, and we want to grant everyone as much relief as we possibly can. So to do that, how many employees do you expect to be using the lot?
Yes. Thank you. I was remiss in not saying that. We expect 25 to 30 employees to be in the building, but we do expect them to come from a variety of ways, from walking to biking to public transit, and then obviously with parking. We have an alternate location in town, and Mike, maybe you can speak to this better than I can. We don't feel from an operational standpoint that the 15 spaces hinder us in any way.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's correct, Joe. That's about the estimate of the number of people that will work out of this location. They do travel from a variety of different means to our current location. We're located in West Warwick on 1350 Division Road across from New England Tech. We own a office condo there. We're going to plan to continue to keep ownership of that. Our back office operations will remain there. Our training, which usually brings in a higher influx of folks from out of the company, from our customers or our partners, they would continue to go to the West Warwick facility. The demographics of the folks that are working out of this location are the executive level and the high-skilled workforce, the senior engineers and architects. Today, they'll travel by car, by scooter, by bike, by bus. They carpool. Often, it's a very green conscious workforce. It's a young workforce. I don't envision that the limited parking spaces would create any duress for our staff in that location.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could expand on that very briefly, that the nice part about introducing the office use into this immediate area, it's a nice dynamic because the hours of operation are kind of juxtaposed to, the traditional use of that building being, or not the, for several decades being a restaurant, putting the demand in the evening hours. Now it's obviously more 9 to 5. So not the applicant expressed not anticipating any issues with the parking, and in fact the parking demand or requirements are much greater for that building as a restaurant under the code. So as the project engineer emphasized, in many of the respects, we're lessening the nonconformities or the intensity of the nonconformities.
Thank you, Mr. Goodyear. Do any other members of the board have questions for the applicant's representatives? Hearing none, Lisa, I would ask that you inquire as to whether there are any members of the general public that seek to speak in favor of the application.
Sure, we only have a handful of people left, but I would just remind them to, if they do have a question, please hit the raise your hand icon at the bottom of your screen, or if you are calling in by phone, please hit *6 to virtually raise your hand and you will be recognized to speak. And we'll give you a minute to sort through that before we close the hearing. I'm not seeing any takers so far.
Okay. With that being said, are there any members of the general public that would like to speak in opposition to the pending application?
No hands have gone up.
Okay, insofar as there is no opposition from the general public to the application, are there any members of the board that would like to advance a motion with regard to the requested relief?
Mr. Chairman, move to approve the application as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Geary. As indicated at the outset of the proceeding, what has been requested by the applicant is a dimensional variance or series of dimensional variances for the applicant as well as the public's benefit. The criteria that must be met to successfully approve such an application are as follows. The hardship from which the application seeks relief is due to the unique characteristics of the subject land and not the general characteristics of the surrounding area. The hardship is not the result of any prior action by the applicant and does not result primarily in the desire for greater financial gain. Granting the request will not alter the general character of the surrounding area or impair the purpose or intent of the zoning ordinance or comprehensive plan. The relief to be granted is the least relief necessary, and the hardship suffered by the owner, if the variance is not granted, shall amount to more than just a mere inconvenience. With those relevant standards in mind, is there any discussion that the board would like to have with regard to the motion made by Ms. Elger and seconded by Ms. Geary?
Mr. Vice Chairman, it's Mike Ursullo. Just a suggestion that you add to your motion that the findings that you've just read were based upon the testimony and evidence received and heard during this meeting, and also based upon the recommendation provided to you by the planning office staff. If you could add that as a basis for those findings.
Thank you, Mr. Orsillo. Ms. Alger, are you amenable to amending your motion to incorporate the suggested recommendations of Mr. Orsillo?
Yes,
And Ms. Scary, are you willing to second that motion as
Sorry,
amended?
yes, I second that motion.
Thank you. With that in mind, is there any discussion amongst the board relative to the motion as amended?
Be nice to see something in there. Be a great improvement.
Everybody's excited about that.
I think it's particularly beneficial that it's not a restaurant and that the hours of operation are up, during the day, whereas we get so much traffic during the evening hours. So I think it's a great project.
Can we come sit on your porch?
If there is no further discussion, Lisa, if you could take a roll call vote.
Sure, please indicate your support for the motion when I call your name. Mr. Golden,
Approved.
Mr. Collier,
Approve.
Mr. Mulhern,
Approve.
Ms. Siri,
Approve.
and Ms. Alger.
Approve.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for your presentation and best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Much. Have a great evening.
The last order of business are, it looks like 3 sets of meeting minutes from the January 2021 meeting, February 2021 meeting, and March 2021 meeting. Did I read that correctly, Lisa?
Yes, you did.
Is there a motion with regard to accepting those meeting minutes?
Move to approve.
Is there, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that's 5-0, Lisa. And then lastly, is there a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting?
So moved.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Night, guys. Thank
Have a
you.
good night, everyone.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
Chris.
Michael,
Good job,
thank you for
Chris.
this evening. Thank
Yeah,
you.
good job, Chris.
Good job, Chris.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Good night.